I'm Insomniac, and this is the Vostok Expedition North Pole 1 Limited Edition.
Oh, yo!
Insomniac.
Before I dive into this review, I'd like to give a big shout out to Jim Berry, who sent in this watch. Not only sent in the watch, but sent in the watch brand new. That's why you saw an unboxing here. He ordered it, sent it here, so I could unbox it and then share it with you before he even gets to wear it, and that's pretty cool. Well, let's get into the watch piece by piece. The case on this piece, minus the bloated dimensions, is actually pretty cool. It's stainless steel coated in a matte black that has a stealthy look to it. The shape of the case is pretty cool too. Rather than just your normal standard rounded sides, either side of the case is actually flat. This creates these nice curves at all four corners and creates a cool overall contrasting shape with the round dial. The case back is a cool polished bronze color with Expedition North Pole art in the center and information about the watch around the outside, including the limited edition number of this particular watch. The black chrono pushers on the side of the case look good on stems done in the same polished bronze as the case back. They're a good size and have a good positive click to them when using the chronograph. The only thing I don't love about the pushers is that they feel like plastic. Not 100% sure if they are plastic or if it's just the matte coating that makes them feel that way, but they feel a little bit cheap compared with the rest of the case. The crown is pretty massive, but it's the right size for this massive case. The Vostok-Europe logo is engraved into it, and the grip on this crown is actually excellent for screwing down and unscrewing the crown with no issues. Overall, minus the size, I do like this case. The dial on this piece gives you a lot to appreciate, although there are quite a few things about this dial that I don't like. Let's take it piece by piece. The surface of the dial and the angled inner ring are the same type of matte black as the case, which gives the piece a nice flow overall. The two subdials are also black, but they're actually a glossier black with a concentric circular pattern, which gives you a cool, subtle contrast against the matte black dial. The indices are large and lume-filled with polished bronze-colored borders around them, with an arrow index for the 12 and a 6 numeral for the 6 index. Personally, I would have rather seen a 12 at the 12, but not a big deal. Other than the applied indices at the quarters and the subdials, everything else on the dial is printed. The tachymeter scale on the outer edge, the minute indices and 5th-second indices, and all of the brand model printing on the dial. My main issue with the printing on the dial is that for the text, the bronze color has a subtle stealthy look against the black. But for everything else, there isn't enough contrast for a quick and easy read of the minutes or chrono scales unless you're in a well-lit room or out in the daylight. The hands on this watch are almost great. I like the shape of the hands. They're filled with an impressive amount of lume and bordered in the same well-polished bronze color as the dial highlights. What I don't love about the hands is the length. With the exception of the second hand for the chronograph, the hands are definitely a little bit short for the size of this dial. There are two usable complications on this watch. The simpler of the two is the date function near the 3 o'clock. It's actually integrated into the running second subdial. It's a white numeral on a black disc. It's a large enough size to be easily readable, and I actually like where it's positioned. It's easy to find and well blended at the same time. The other complication is, of course, the chronograph. It's easy to use, and the large central second hand is a great length, and the hand in the minute subdial is large enough to help you find the minute position easily. The big issue with the chronograph, for the few people who might actually use it, is that there's a 5th-second track on the outer edge of the dial, but if you look closely at the seconds hand for the chronograph, it appears to run in quarter seconds, which is odd. I don't know if I've ever actually even seen that, but that means that it's impossible to measure 5th seconds. Let's be honest, most people don't use their chronographs, and the few people who do are probably more interested in the seconds and or minutes, but if you're going to have a 5th-second track, the chronograph should be capable of measuring to a 1/5 of a second, and this one can't do it. The lume on this piece is pretty strong. As you can see here, the lume field areas are large. Vostok uses superluminova here, and although not the most sensitive luminescent filling for regular light to dark operations, when purposely charged it all glows fairly strong and bright and lasts pretty well. The only inconsistency here is the brightness of the indices versus the brightness of the hands. I've noticed that the hands glow a little bit brighter and last a little bit longer than the lume inside the indices. Time at a glance on this watch is okay, but it could have been great. The hands are large, the complications don't get in the way of an easy read at the time, and the contrast of the white hour markers on the black dial is excellent. The problem comes in with what I mentioned earlier about the dark bronze colored printed indices for the minute track. In a dark room or anywhere where you don't have good lighting, you really have to look close to see which index the minute hand is pointing to. If Vostok would have just used a white minute track on this dial, it would have been excellent. Accuracy with this piece is as you would expect from a good quartz movement. In the week I've had it, I haven't noticed any deviation from the correct time, and the look of the movement of both the chronograph and the running second hand in the 3 o'clock subdial are both of solid quality. The strap on this watch is ridiculous, but it's also one of my favorite parts of the watch. Before I get into the details, it's actually worth mentioning that this watch actually came with 3 straps. A NATO strap, a rubber dive strap, and the leather strap you see here on the watch. Now, I didn't take the other 2 out of the plastic. I figured I'd give Jim something to open. I didn't have any use for the other 2 straps in the past week, so I figure we'll leave those fresh and in the plastic. One thing I love about this strap is the unique design. It's actually squared at both ends rather than coming to a point or a curve, and at first I thought it was odd, but it actually grew on me pretty quick. It also has this really cool split design that almost gives the impression of it being 2 narrow straps rather than 1. There are 4 lines of stitching, really nice free loops, and a double-pronged buckle with the Vostok logo engraved in it, finished in a great polished bronze color to match the highlights of the watch. The strap is wide, which aesthetically is the right size and choice for the size of this watch. It's also a fairly thick strap. Doesn't feel cheap or flimsy anywhere from the lugs to the ends, and although not immediately comfortable, it becomes pliable and breaks in fairly quick. Overall, I found the strap on this watch to be of great quality, and visually one of the most appealing parts of the watch. Last, we have value. One of the only sites that I could find this listed on as of the time of this review had it on for $344. Now, it's a limited production piece, it comes with 3 straps, and Vostok, although not some huge powerhouse of a brand known all around the world like Omega or Tudor or something like that, definitely has its core following of fans, as I found out from the rabid, angry people who didn't like my last Vostok review, which I still stand behind, by the way. But unless you collect Vostok watches specifically, you really have to look at what you're getting here. It does feel solid and have some unique qualities to it, but it's a Japanese quartz movement. It has 2 of the most standard functions ever put on a watch, and it really doesn't exhibit any kind of wow factor above and beyond any other types of watches that are in this price point. Remember that at this point, the sub $500 category of watches is becoming extremely competitive, and there are some great watches to be had from Seiko, Orient, Hamilton, Tissot, and I'm talking mechanical watches, not quartz watches. There are plenty of watches for this money or less that can do the same with a mechanical movement, and I think make you just as happy. So again, if you're looking at the quality of this piece and you're looking for a collectible Vostok specifically, then $344 is really not such a bad deal. But if you're just looking for a large aviator style quartz chronograph, it isn't a terrible value by any means, but there are definitely other watches out there for the same money or less that I think can do all the same stuff as good or better. Well, again, a big thanks to Jim for lending me this watch. Definitely an interesting piece. If you have any watches you want to see reviewed here at Should I Time This, email me at shouldItimethis@gmail.com. I'll tell you where to send the watches, and then they get reviewed and sent back. And if you'd like to see a lot more watch reviews and help support this channel to keep it going, there's a link right at the top of the video description. Sign up at my Patreon page, that would be appreciated. And I will see you all at the next review.